Hi, Maria here. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, you guys are in for a treat. I am very excited for this one. My guest today is Hilary from Designed as You. Hilary is a human design reader, teacher, mentor. She runs different mentoring programs to teach you how to read human design, but also to help you or to guide you to live a purposeful life or to become the person you are here to be. So, I mean, she does so much more. I don't even know how to put everything into just one sentence, but to me, she's just a very inspiring woman, and I am totally in love with her podcast. So, if you haven't listened in, you really head over there right after this episode and check it out because it's really amazing. I found her podcast this summer actually, like when I was just really stuck. Like life was throwing very interesting challenges at me, and I was completely I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. Leave me alone. It was a tough one. And during that time, I discovered her podcast, and all by accident. And yeah, I was immediately addicted. Listen to it every day, and from the start, from the beginning, and I'm just like, oh, that's so nice and so interesting, and I just really like to listen to her and to also, yeah, like see life through a different lens, because I obviously view it in a certain way, but then she comes in, and especially with the human design, she has a complete different perspective on life. And it's like, oh, that's so cool. Like, maybe I should just, like, how can I apply that actually into my daily routine? Or, hey, like, just ask myself these questions back, basically, like the stuff she's been talking about. But I've also, like, every time she speaks about living abroad or like founding the business and like living a life on your terms and not the conditioned life, I was like, hell yeah, I hear you. I mean, we've all, probably all know it. We've all been there, done that, and we all know what it's like. So I was really like, yeah, she definitely knows what she's talking about because I've done the trial and error and I've done it a million times. And I can tell you, she's right. Like everything she says in the podcast is literally, yeah, I totally agree with it. And I can just, from my experience, can say, yeah, that's definitely it. Very crazy. And I'm very glad that I discovered human design so much later on. So, like, I wasn't like with this menu and now I'm this and this and this. So, yeah, have a listen what it means if you don't know human design. It's a very epic one. I loved it. And, yeah, also I invite you to head over to Hilary's website and just check out your human design profile to see what your blueprint is. And yeah, I mean, you tell me if you are like, oh my God, that is so me, or if you are like, no. Well, yeah, for me it was like, how crazy, how can this know what I've been living, like how I am and how I'm living my life? It's crazy, like very, very crazy in the best way. However, so I really just invite you to just head over to her website, check it out, get your profile, your human design profile. And now I really hope you enjoy this podcast. Hello, beautiful soul, Hilary. I am so
Hi,
excited to have you on my podcast today.
very excited to be
Thanks
here.
so much for joining. I am so excited. And yeah, as I just said to you, I'm like I've been waiting for this for like weeks now. I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to ask you all my questions. And thanks so much for taking your time because I know you have a retreat coming up and it's probably crazy busy. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and my community. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yes. So Hillary, I discovered Hillary on her amazing podcast Designed as You, which I will link below. If you don't know it, you have to check it out. It's amazing. I loved it. And I consumed every episode in like 3 months. Like it was my daily
Whoa.
little routine. Yes, I was like, it was a very bad summer. And I was like, I need a little highlight every day. And instead of going to the beach because I couldn't, I was like, okay, now I have Hillary and a cup of coffee in the morning. It's awesome.
Oh,
And it really was. It really was. Yeah. 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 And I
thank
knew. Yeah, I wanna have her, I wanna talk to her. So now I bring Hillary to you guys too, which
you.
I'm so excited about. So just before we get started, so I'm obviously now somewhat familiar with human design and what it
Mm-hmm.
means and what the whole idea is. I'm not a pro, obviously, which is why I would love to talk with you about it. And yeah, can you just explain to everyone who hasn't heard about it, what is human design and what is it that you do?
Mm, lots of things.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's always hard. I really need to work on my elevator pitch or like what I actually do. It's hard to explain because I can't even really explain it. But with human design, I can explain for you. Human design is your soul blueprint. I like to think of it as your higher self communicating to you about your energetic aura blueprint, how you best operate and move through the world for more ease, less resistance, less struggle. And I found it in a time where I was asking lots of questions and I was starting to second guess or starting to self inquire of how I got to where I got to. I ended up in a corporate role, felt like my soul was being sucked out of me, and I was looking for all these answers, not feeling like I was getting any. And then human design came into my life. So it's a combination of lots of different ancient wisdoms, including the Kabbalah, the I Ching, the Tree of Life, the chakra system, astrology. Then we've got a little bit of genetic physics in there. So I like to see it as taking all the best things of all the different worlds and creating one master blueprint for you. And it just helps you to deepen and understand yourself. And then you're able to trust it. I like to think that your human design, and by the way, there's billions and billions of different configurations. So your human design is entirely unique. And it's an individual expression of this one energy we have, this one consciousness, this beautiful energy, life force energy, nature that's running through all of us. And it's an individual prism of how our energy is best used, what our purpose is, or how we're meant to show up. And I just see it as a permission slip and a reminder if you are lost, if you're feeling like you're second guessing yourself and you're doubting, or you're feeling like you've gone down your conditioned path, similar to how I did when I was in law. And then I found this of like, oh, this is who I am. And it gave me that reassurance and it helped my conscious mind make sense of what my intuition already knew. I always say that not everyone needs human design. If you're trusting your intuition, you listen to what feels true and natural for you. You lean into your natural gifts. You follow your intuitive nudges. You don't need human design. But for a lot of us, we're in this place of a lot of living from this mind, heady place, and we just start feeling really frustrated. And the universe or the world around us will always reflect back to us what's happening internally. So you'll often be directed in ways where it's like, okay, things just aren't working out as though I'd hoped, or I'm not feeling how I thought I would feel. You almost feel a little bit jibbed if you did all the right things, you followed the correct path, and you did the safe things, whatever. We all have our different versions of it. And a lot of the time, it isn't actually true for us. So it either doesn't really work out or it doesn't even feel good. So human design directs us in our unique path.
Mm. And I love that you say we actually don't need it. And that is what I really loved about your podcast as well, because I'm pretty sure you said that in the very first one already. And I was like, hey, you know what? That's honest, because most people, they're trying to sell you something and they want to get you like almost addicted. Like, you need me, you need this. And it's so interesting because I'm a person, I usually do stuff backwards. So I have to do it my own way. I have to. You can tell me 100 times, but I still have to do it. And I know that. But then I know, at least, I know. And then I just figure it out for myself. And it was when I was a kid always a problem. Funny enough, though, I always knew what I wanted and I always knew better. But then people hated that. And I was like, but why are you trying to tell me now how I'm feeling when I'm telling you I'm feeling this and I want to do that? Like, what? And so, that was me growing up. And I was like, okay, I always did my thing. And I'm so like, now even like looking back, like, oh, well done, girl. But but it is hard, and that is like, people are not happy with you, when you are finally like doing your thing and you're just like, no, but I need to do it. I'm doing it for me because I want to be a good person. I am me, but I also want to be a great girlfriend to my boyfriend. I want to be the best version, and for that, I have to put me first in some things. And just when I know I'm not good at it, I don't like it, why should I really force myself into it every day and feel miserable? So I really love that you say you have everything inside of you and you basically just have to lean in and trust yourself. But it's nice to have a little reassurance because I did it backwards, right? I found human design now, like I'm early 30 and I'm like now looking back and I'm like, hey, but it's so true, and that's why I was like,
Yeah.
it's so accurate because it couldn't know, I've already lived that time and I've already, made all my experiences. I'm like, damn, that's crazy, crazy accurate.
And I think with this as well, what I love that you've just shared, it's like, you know, oftentimes it can trigger other people, or it can be that they can be worried, legitimately worried that you're no longer safe, or that, um, you know, they'll no longer know who you are. And it comes usually from so much love. And it's just, we can't expect, though, people that don't allow themselves to follow their dreams or live authentically, that for you to then be like so accepting or so open to when you do. So it's often, I always feel like you just lead by example with that, but also be so mindful and like give other people grace that it can be, you know a lot of fear can come up for them if they don't allow that for themselves.
Mm,
And I think as well, you mentioned with the children, often as kids, it can become really unsafe for us if we can't trust our parents. And a
mm,
lot of the time, if your parents or the people that you see as guardians or people that you look up to, if they say something different to what your intuition says, oftentimes as children you learn, well, I need to trust that person, I need to trust my mum, or I need to trust my dad, because if I can't trust them, then I'm not safe, I can't belong, or I might not be looked after. And so oftentimes kids really at an early young age learn to not trust their intuition or trust what's
mm,
innate within them, because it might go against what societally or what their parents or any figure that they are being looked after by. And so oftentimes it's almost like learned behavior of, okay, well, I need to prioritize or believe external over myself, because a lot of us weren't taught, and like neither were our parents, neither were our
no,
grandparents. No, it's like no one's
yeah,
fault. It's just none of us realize. And if we go really back, of course they
mm,
were living by their intuition.
yeah,
So yeah, I hope we kind of almost revert back where we no longer need human design. I would love if my job became extinct and we no longer needed to talk about how to connect with your intuition. Like it was almost, of course, like
mm,
how wouldn't you know to trust your intuition or, lean into what's natural, all the things? It would just be obvious. But at this moment, a lot of the time, we're prioritizing what is external. Um, and not realizing that we're actually a body consciousness where we are in, we're a passenger to our body, we're a passenger to where our intuition and where source wants to take us. It's not about, it's almost like getting out of the way, if anything.
yeah, yeah. No, I also love that it exists, and I love that people like you exist and just guide, other people through it. But again, I really love how you do it, as it's not in a like I am telling you this now because that's what it says on the piece of paper. Many
Mm.
people unfortunately do that, and it scares me because now it's going into we're doing it the same way but the other way around. So now it's
Mhm.
again like literally like I give you an example with me. So when I discovered it, I was just talking to another person like, oh, I'm this and that. What? So I'm a manifesto, and she, I'm like, what are
Uh,
you? Okay, and it's so funny because it's like two things where I'm like always explaining because people come to me and I'm for some people, for me it's normal what I'm doing, and I don't understand the rest of them, and they don't understand me. It's fair, it's fine. I don't
yeah.
mind that at all. But it's like I know myself very well. So I made sure of that in my 20s. I totally gave my time until 20. I was like, no, this is my time. I want to find out who I am. Who am I? Who am I without the money, without the fancy clothes, without any? Who am I, and what do I want to be here in this world?
Mm.
So I know who I am and what I want to achieve. So I'm telling friends, or that was a friend of mine. I told her like, listen, I really need for that example was like, I need my home to really reflect my inside. I also need that from the person outside. And I know that. So I've gone through, I've tried it all, and I can say now, looking back, nope, I need a place that is safe, that really reflects me, and nice and cozy, but minimalistic. And I also want amazing people like me. I need that. That's my soul food. And so I'm telling her, and she goes like, yeah, no, but maybe you have to. So it was always my problem again. So I have to do something differently, and I'm being too complicated. And well, why can't you just, like just accept it? Maybe you have to just, learn to accept it, learn like. And I'm like, okay. So then we start talking about human design and what are you and what's your environment. And I tell her it's like, oh yeah, you need this and this and that. And I'm just like, okay, 1 second. So I just told you face to face. I told you this is what I need, and I'm a very good communicator. Like I told this and this
Mm.
and that is why, and I don't even have to explain it, but I did because I know people struggle sometimes. I'm like, okay. And then the moment I told her what I was, she's like going like 100% reverse and telling me, oh yeah, it says here you are that. Okay, now you are that. And I'm like
Mm.
shocked and stunned, and I'm just in disbelief. And I'm like, no, that is all wrong. What are you doing? Please don't ever do that to someone, because I know, but imagine they do that to people who come to them for help. And
Mm.
then they're like, oh yeah, that's what it says now. You are a manifesto, or I'm sorry, your life starts at 50. That's also something I've heard. I'm like, what are
That's
you guys
I've never even
crazy?
heard that. I don't know where you got like release that.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah,
I've never heard
yeah,
that.
yeah. So it's like all very sad until then, and it's a try and error and this and that. But when you're 50, then life starts. And I'm like, right, okay.
Oh,
No,
that
it
might
does
have been
not.
screen. Yeah, we can clear that up because I'm all about busting myths with human design. And I like that you mentioned this because I think it's so important. I actually remember a few years ago now a tarot card expert, tarot card person, practitioner.
Mm,
And he's told me, and it always stuck with me because it was exactly how I felt around human design. He said, it's not actually the cards that tell you what the answer is. He said it's your body's response to the cards. And that's what gives you the answer. So, for example, and I, at that moment, I was umming and ahhing over a big decision. And I remember we were there doing it, and I like did the cards, and it said like basically, no, don't do it. My whole body was like, hell no, I so want to do this. Like my whole body was like, screw you, card, I'm doing this. And that gave me my clarity of instead of being like, oh, well, the card says no, so that means it's no. No, it's, it's signaling and it's giving your body something to respond to. So with human design, I'm such like, it should never be prescriptive. It should never feel like disempowering, and it actually like it doesn't. It's really disappointing when I see it being shared. Um, yeah, in this disempowering, dogmatic way, because it's not meant to be like that. And and like that as well. Like your friend is doing what she thinks is helpful. It's not. It's never out of malice, but it's just always being aware of like your intuition, your body, your knowing trumps all. And we have these beautiful systems that can create awareness. But the thing is that you have to be so mindful of whether it's your conditioning that is saying and going against it, or whether it is your, genuine internal knowing. And so that's why I love, even just with Richard Rudd and the Gene Keys, he talks so much about the art of contemplation, because I remember when I learned a lot about my human design first, there was a lot that I didn't resonate with. There was a lot that I did not. I was like, yeah, I guess I kind of see that. And I let it sit. I'm not someone that will just be like, oh, well, that's how it has to be. I just let that sit. There was definitely parts of that where I was like, oh my gosh, explains everything. And that's the thing that I started to experiment with more, because at the end of the day, human design is an experimentation. Everything should be an experiment. Like try it out, see how it feels. And I know a lot of the time when you do, you start to feel better and you start to see change in your environment because you change. You start to respond differently to your environment. So with that, yeah, you experiment with it. And the things that I was like, oh, really? Okay. That has really shown up in the later years. Like I remember one specific one, it was like, you're going to build a community. It's going to be a lot around community. And as someone that always kind of felt like a little bit of like a loner, felt a little bit like I had my close friends, but I never would say that I
Mm.
had this big, massive community. And then when I started down my human design and started sharing and started doing the work that I do, it's definitely cultivated such a beautiful community. And I remember, yeah, years and years ago when I first discovered that, or that's my only channel is the 3740, which is you're here to make community.
Mm.
And it's just interesting how it's been a natural byproduct of the work that I do, or the person that I'm, now becoming, I'm like now experimenting with.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I feel like it's something that with anything, you don't have to take anything as gospel. It's just like let it sit, let it feel. And if it's like a hell no, and especially when it's about the environment and things like that, that's so dependent on like you have to have the exact minute birth time. And also, it's just very, very on brand for you as a manifestor to be like, I'm going to rebel anyway. So, someone, you can't tell a manifestor what to do. So, like, note to all of
Mm.
us, don't tell a manifestor what to do. And just, they know what they're doing. Like, you don't need to give direction to a manifestor. They know, unless they're highly conditioned and they need reminding. But you're never giving direction to them. You're just helping them connect with it themselves. So, yeah, note to self, don't give advice to a manifestor when they don't need it or they don't want it.
uh, yeah, no, but I'm glad yeah, I'm glad. No, but I'm just so glad that you also say like you don't have to take anything. Like if you don't like it, you don't like it, and then just And also what you said, like to feel yourself into it, because I was like you, but in a different way. Like I was also like I like to do stuff myself because again, I know I can totally rely on myself. I know what I'm like. If that's a task, just tell me when and where, and I'll get it done. But
Mm,
sometimes, no, not sometimes, like especially when you run a business, you cannot do everything by yourself. So and then in my later years, I used to work in the film industry, and one of the most beautiful parts about it was actually this industry really taught me teamwork and just showed me the beautiful side about working with a team, but not where I tell people what to do because I hate that. I expect you to know what to do. I want people who are even better than me so I can learn and look up to them. But it was such a beautiful symphony to just really see everyone knows exactly what they're doing. Everyone is there because they love what they're doing. Otherwise you wouldn't make it a week. And I was like, oh, I love it so much. I love it so much. So I never thought that I'm all for teams, but apparently I am. Like I just didn't know, I didn't find my team back then. So it's a bit like what you say, like you were like your community, what community? And suddenly you feel yourself in. It's like, hey, that feels good.
mhm. That's the thing. You just follow your strategy and authority and in human design. So for you as a manifest, you're just following and creating and stepping towards your urges. And
Mm,
the thing with the team, it's never going to feel good as a manifestor you don't like feeling micromanaged. You don't want to micromanage
mm,
anyone else. It's
mm.
like you just want everyone to do their thing, not bother each other,
Yeah, yeah,
and let's just work in a way that we all bring out the best in the project or whatever you're doing. So it just sounds like whenever you're doing something that is like aligned, the like you are supported in creating what you set out to, especially as a manifestor. And there's always going to be lessons, there's always going to be mirrors,
yeah.
there's always going to be challenges. It's not like, oh, I follow my intuition and follow my strategy and authority and it's all rainbows and butterflies. No,
Oh
because
no.
you get your invitations for growth, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like it's satisfying, or you feel that deep sense of peace that you're creating as a manifestor.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And yeah, I had that moment, and I was down in South Africa, and I was like, suddenly with my people, because I'm just a networker. Like, really, if it's an art form, I'm a Monet. I'm like so brilliant at it. And everyone comes to me like, "Are you not exhausted?" I'm like, "No, like I didn't even sleep. Like, it's one of those places where I go and I don't need to sleep, but I'm so energized. Like communicating, being with these people, exchanging ideas, like which is
Gets you
oh my
going.
God, it's amazing. It's literally like food for my soul. Like it's insane. And then my boyfriend also manifester, but complete
Mm,
different. And he comes like, he's like exhausted. He's like, I'm going to bed now. I have to sleep for a week. Like, shame, you go. Yeah, complete different type. For me, it
yeah.
gives me all the energy and I love it, but it must be the right person. If it's not,
Mm,
it's actually also draining me. It makes me also like very frustrated and angry and like, get these people away from me. I'd rather stay alone then. But yeah, very
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Again, because I'm very aware of it, because I really watched, like I wanted to find patterns, stuff that I do, and also my conditioning. There's like one or two things I'm still struggling with a lot, and that's a lot of like in business now with you know, yeah, because I work differently. And again,
Yeah.
I like it. But then my parents come in, and it's always with my parents, unfortunately. And, I'm like, oh no, are you really still questioning me? Why? And it's like, but when are you starting to do it properly? Don't you want to do something real? Don't you know? And it's like, but I am doing something real. I'm just having different, times and time frames for stuff. And for them,
Mm.
it's so hard to understand. And then every time we have that situation, I'm like so exhausted afterwards. I'm so upset. I'm like, oh, why? Even though I'm a grown woman. But it's like,
Oh,
seriously, are we still doing this? Yeah, so I totally was like, yeah, no, that I have to really let that go. But it's hard. It's hard.
yeah, and like, if your parents knew, like, could understand you as a manifester and really just trust you in that. And the thing is that, again, your parents just love you, but they think that
Yeah.
in order for you to be safe is to do the way that they think it should be done or the safe path. And I always just feel like, especially as a manifester, it's not expecting people to understand before you really like, you kind of really have to just be like, I'll show you then. Or also not having any expectations. I think the biggest thing
Mhm.
with parents and with, people that just aren't on the same wavelength is just not having any expectations with them. I think that was the liberating thing when I was moving through a lot of this with my family. And I just was like, they think it's weird. Cool, great, whatever. And like, and now it's so different. Like they all speak about their gut at the dinner table. And mom's asking me like, oh yeah, what's the generator thing again? And now my dad, it was a little bit, it's not really so much the human design aspect, but now that he sees it's a business and it's, it's
Yes,
making
yes.
impact. And he's like, okay, so that's
Yeah.
doing, he was like, okay, so, all that schooling I put you through in high school wasn't for a waste. But, I think sometimes you just kind of have to show them and not
Yeah.
expect them to understand before because they don't have that dream. They don't have that vision. You do. You have it to bring to life. And, you just have to trust that when there's that desire within you, there's absolutely a need in the environment for it. I see desire so differently now as your desire is not just like a self-thought, selfish or consumed desire. No, it is literally created because there is a need in the community or the collective that then manifests a desire within you. And that's why sometimes when your desires shift and change, it's because there is a difference or a change in the need. And these are the soul desires. So you just have to keep trusting. And
Mm.
it is so hard when you're like, when they can be, you can feel judged or misunderstood. But I just always feel like there's just don't have any expectations around it and just almost know that that's what you're coming
Yeah.
in for, um, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate, but they'll come around.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And it's like my boyfriend, he also said what you just said. Yeah, just show them that,
Yeah,
you are fine and that it's gonna grow and it's all good. And for them, it's just a security, like their sense of security,
yeah.
their little things they need to feel secure. So yeah, no, I am aware they love me, and they just express their love a little bit weird. But it's just okay. Yeah.
Again, here we go
Yeah.
again.
Oh my. But yeah, sometimes it's just good to hear that it happens to other people as well.
Oh,
And
yeah.
especially, the more people wake up and you speak to more people, and suddenly it's like, oh, okay, so it's not just me feeling that way. It's actually everyone else trying to figuring it out as well. And that really helps, even though it doesn't really help, right? But it helps. It helps just knowing, okay, I'm not wrong. I'm not something. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
Like,
You know what? It actually helped me as well when it came with the generations. There is different generations of like what different people have moved through. So, our parents, they had a totally different karma to move through.
mm,
I can only speak for like the generation older was all about breaking down. Well, it still is
mm,
breaking down, but breaking down racism, breaking down,
yeah.
all about feminism, all about you're right, you know, and then it goes further of like women having a right to vote. So, and like
Yeah.
post-war, if those older generations. So I just see it that every generation had their thing to break down or to decondition or move
Mm.
through, and like they did that work for us. Now we
Mm.
don't have to. Well, you know, definitely in some areas of the world, it's still moving through it, but they did break down a lot. And then for us, we had a lot more of this like self actualization, connecting to yourself, all about like creating joy in your life. What's your purpose? They didn't get to think about that.
No.
That was not a thought of like, what's my purpose? How can I enjoy my life? What's the bliss? How am I making
Yes.
an impact? You
Yeah.
know, all these beautiful things that we do, that wasn't a thought process. And it's because it's not for them to break down, it's for us to break down. And we're probably going to have the next generation, and also still, they probably like look to us and think like, come on, get with it. Like, get with it. What are you guys doing? You're so behind. And I'm like, I thought I was good. I was with it. I even just recently, I think there was something on like an award show, a music awards show. I knew none of the people. I was like, am
Yeah.
I this person now? I'm getting so old that these
I know.
people, these famous, like millions and millions of,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
followers and community, I don't even know who they are. So it helps, like that helped me of thinking like, you know, there's just different ways, um, and giving them grace to that. And all you can do, yeah, is just continue your path, and like give them the like ask them to just trust you. And if not, I
Mm.
always think you got to set boundaries.
Mm.
If you're having communications, it's like I don't really want to talk about that, or just
Yeah.
knowing, because I think a lot of the time, especially as kids or like children of parents, is that you know, we kind of want to seek acceptance and we want them to be proud of us and we want them to tell us that they're, you know, that they're happy for what we're doing or whatever. And I think we just have to be really honest of like what we're going to them for. I remember I had this wake up call. I like went to go and call my dad about something that exciting had happened in my business. And I remember, like, as it was dialing, I was like, what is my intention with this call? Am I like literally wanting him to tell me I'm proud of you, or am I just
Mm.
sharing? And like, it's great to just share, but I had to be really honest with myself. Am I doing this so that he like
Mm.
validates my decision and or my choices? And yeah, it like totally shifted when I realized that. I was like, okay, I can just share, but I'm not looking for validation and I'm not looking for them to say anything. And I think then that totally shifted the relationship. I didn't feel like there was any judgment or anything there because I didn't care. So I always
Mm.
think it's like having boundaries. Don't expect to go to someone and keep on being like, okay, maybe this time it'll be different.
Mm.
Maybe they'll blah blah blah. No, you just do your thing, and then when it's going to be different, then you know then you can enjoy that.
Yeah.
But don't keep on like going back
Yeah.
expecting a different result, because I see that a lot, and even I can
Yeah.
see that even in my sister at the moment. And it's like, don't like they'll come around.
Yeah.
Just leave it. Yeah,
Yeah. It is hard though. It
it's
really
so hard.
is. Yes. But yeah, definitely the smarter way what you just said. Also, like my boyfriend also, he's very good in observing and he's also like, babe, mm-mm, exactly what you just said. Like, don't do it. You
Mm.
know, you know what you're doing. And it's just as you said, they come around. Just don't expect them to change. They're not going to change. Like, ah, yeah. Well,
And they're
it's
already so
what it is.
proud of you. They're already so
Yeah.
proud of you. Like
Yeah.
that's the other thing. I remember I was so afraid to, like, a big reason why I stayed in law for so long was because I didn't want to disappoint my family.
Mm.
And you know, I remember when I eventually did quit and like start my business, um, you know, I realized that that's not the reason why they love me. That's not the reason like why they're proud of you. And I remember it was actually like a really nice moment. I overheard my grandma. She has no idea what human design is, but I overheard her telling someone like, "Oh, so she has her own business, and there's from people all over the world. It's you know, it's this like wellness thing." And she didn't really know, but I like she was really telling. I think she was telling. I can't remember what it was, but I remember in that moment being like, oh, she used to say the same thing about law. And they don't really care. It's just like, you know, it's just the older
Oh, but
generation.
bless her. Oh,
Yeah, I
that's
know.
cute.
Mhm.
Oh,
She's
yes.
wonderful.
Oh, nice. But that's a good transition. So you left law
Yes.
and you were a full-on lawyer. So you were done and ready and a lawyer.
Yeah, yeah,
And then you
yeah, yeah,
decided to, wow, to let that, and you were like me, like you also just quit and that's it. You're like, okay, that is it. And then you went over to Europe, right?
Yes, yes. So that sounds like that makes it sound like so. Yes, it was just one day. It was it. It was a long process. So yes, I did all law school. I actually really enjoyed uni. Then I went to the bar and became a lawyer. And then when I was in this law practice, it was almost as like I felt like things just weren't flowing. And as well, I felt like very, very inauthentic. I went into family law feeling like this was how I was going to help people, and I felt anything but that. And so there was 2 years, at that particular law firm. There was others before that where I was doing my training, but that particular one where I really stuck it out. I really felt like, no, I can do this. Or is it me? Is it because I'm not enough, or that I can't hack it? And as the universe beautifully does, it will make it so incredibly hard so that you get out. And I'm so grateful because I had a boss that was very hard to work under. She was quite abusive, and I remember just being like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I remember I started having panic attacks. I wasn't someone that ever had experienced that. I started getting really anxious, and I just was having almost an existential crisis in my mid 20s of this can't be the next 40 years of my life. Like, I cannot do this. And I would look to my bosses and think, I don't want their life. What am I working so hard for? And so there was a big, big process with that. So I did so much self work in that moment. That's when I discovered human design. That gave me that permission and understanding. I also did a lot of subconscious work, a lot of shadow work, a lot of inner child work. So it wasn't like I kind of was just like one day, oh yeah, I'll just quit. I did so much work in the background to be able to feel safe to do that. Um, and I really realized like how much my conditioning and my beliefs and all the things had ended me up there. And so I did the kind of self work, and then my external life started to change. So then that's when I moved to Europe, and I was doing a skincare business. Loved it. It helped me to really learn. I still didn't feel like I could make money from human design. Human design was my passion project. I was like, I could make money from that. People won't actually hire me for that. Or how would I actually support? Like, no, of course not. Human design can't do that. So I was like, but skincare maybe, this is where I
Yeah.
was at the time. So, I did the skincare for 2 years. Loved it, learned so much. I learned actually, because I remember when I was in my law cubicle thinking, well, I don't know how to run a business. All I know is what I went to uni for. I even did study business, but like that doesn't teach you anything. It's like
No.
you learn. Google is the way you
Yeah.
learn how to do business,
Yeah.
and
True.
asking people and working it out as you go. But with that, it is like, yeah, so it gave me the confidence then. And then after 2 years then there was another pivot. That was very scary for me to leave the skincare company. It was very successful. It was doing well. And it was a moment as well where I was like, I don't know if Europe is actually the place that is for me. It was this beautiful place where I had like definitely my dark night of the soul, and really, yeah, it was a reflection of how I was going at the moment. I was in Berlin, and it was a beautiful time, but I was very, very like ready. Like it felt very complete when after those 2 years. Um, and yeah, and then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start with human design. I was doing it always on the side. I'd done all the trainings and all the study. Like it was a thing that I was obsessed with it. I literally before I gave my first reading, I had been obsessed with it for years. And yeah, I decided doing it on the side, and then that was my next big pivot. I would actually say that was even scarier than leaving law, because leaving law was, I had no other choice. I felt like I cannot be here a second longer. With the skincare, it was actually a little bit harder because I loved it and it was great, and I had flexibility. And sometimes they often call it the golden handcuffs, where it's like, this feels fine. It's fine. And like, I'm getting paid and we're making something, but whether it was actually what I felt I was here to do. And I often reflected back of like, would I want this to be my story? With this, if I looked back, would I regret never having given human design a chance? And I think a lot of the time, and I see it with a lot of my clients, it's like we can be afraid to make a decision because we feel like that decision has to be forever. And I even remember when I was first getting into human design, I was like, well, do I want to be in human design for the rest of my life? Is that what I want to do? And, that isn't an unnecessary expectation to feel that, especially me, I have an emotional authority. And when I was really just gave myself permission, like, this is what I want to do now. This is where I'm feeling guided. This is where I feel energy and excitement around. As a projector, I was getting lots of invites. And yeah, that's when I started the human design business. So that was about 5 or 6 years ago now.
Wow. Wow, but look how you've grown. That's insane. So you came back then to Australia, and in Australia
No,
you started. No?
I actually went to Spain. I went to Spain, and this was during all COVID and everything.
Mm,
And went to Spain, and like it was full lockdown. So it was such a beautiful time to be able to just be so inward.
yeah.
Um, and then I moved to Mexico. And that's where the business really, really started to pick up traction because I really just put myself out there. Another big block for me, or a big fear when I first started my business, was the fear of being seen and being judged and being misunderstood. Uh, I was so deathly afraid of that, and that was probably one of my biggest decisions from leaving Australia, because I felt like I couldn't explore where I was wanting to go. And I have the gate of extremes in my chart, so I can go to extremes with things. I could have just started my business in Australia, but I really needed to like remove myself from my known environment. Well, that's what I needed at the time. And so then when I went to Mexico, I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to really give this a chance. I would put up little posters everywhere. I started an Instagram page, from zero.
Mm.
And I just like showed up really like with so much love and so much care and passion, and people just came. And like it got to that I was doing like 5 readings a day in this little
Oh,
town
wow.
in Puerto Escondido. Talk about like kind of burnt me out, but I was so excited. I
Wow.
didn't care. I was like, people want to hear this, amazing. They were like dirt cheap readings as well, but I loved it.
Yeah.
I got so much experience. And yeah, and then after a while there, then I moved back to Australia, and then I had another journey of it, of like, will people want human design in Australia? Like, yes, in this coastal beach town where it's all expats and open-minded people, of course people want human design. But then I was like, in Australia, no one knows what it was.
Mm.
And I remember having this moment in Mexico, being like looking around, and everyone was doing something cool. Everyone was, then there was someone doing, I don't know, body work, someone doing breath work, someone doing all these different types of modalities. And I remember just being like, okay, this place is good. This place has support. This place has, you know, again, when I was speaking about this desire and need, the need is being serviced here. And I remember just having this moment of like, Australia needs more of this. And I was like, and then all of a sudden I had this desire to go back to Australia. And
Okay.
then, yeah, that's when the business really, yeah, more sustainable. And now I love Australia. I couldn't, you know, but I also just
Nice.
love the work that I do now. So yeah, I always just trusted. I never felt like I had to have a big plan. And I think sometimes there's this big pressure to feel like you need to have your 10-year plan around your business. And no, like you have your visions, you have yeah, you can have goals and things, but
Yeah.
I've always left it open, and I've always trusted, and I've always been guided, and it's never steered me wrong. I have a hope motivation in my human design, and I think the more you just trust where you're going, um, yeah, you'll always be supported, always, or you'll learn lessons, and that's
Yeah.
also just good. Yeah,
Yeah. But it's part of the journey.
yeah.
So, yeah, no, I've learned more from the more painful, the greater the lesson. That's actually my experience. It's like,
Well, the
okay.
universe had to make it painful so that you listened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just how there would have been other instances where you could have learned it an easier way. That's probably so. Do you have a 6 in your profile? Is that what?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 6. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking for 6. Yeah. So that's common.
Crazy.
That's an experience of, really life will you really do learn through life experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then you really know, that for me is very important. Like, I'm not good with people telling me, oh, that's what it says in a book. I'm like, yeah, but who is the person who wrote it? Like, how does a book know? Like, I have to know myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's a blessing, but it's also a curse sometimes.
Yeah, but it's only a curse if you resist it or you go against it. It's never that you're being punished, or it's
Yeah,
never that it
no,
has to be hard. It's when we
yeah,
resist it or when
yeah,
we suffer through it. I always think we choose whether we suffer.
yeah,
Um, and two people can have the same exact experience, and like one suffers, one doesn't. um, but yeah, your soul, I always just think your soul chose that. Your soul chose to have this big life experience. And I always think when someone, it's this true embodied experience and wisdom and knowledge that you have. When you have gone through something, you can look someone in the eyes and be like, I see you, I get you. And like that feeling, and you don't even have to say that. People just feel
mm,
that. So the 4-6, yeah, it's also interesting for you because you aren't meant to learn from books. You aren't meant to learn from other things, but other people are,
yeah,
so it's also just like there are people that's how they learn, if they
yeah.
have a one line. So it's just like understanding each other rather than being like, oh, well, my way is the only way.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And
Mm.
what you said to, like, life isn't punishing you, that was such a big one for me that turned everything around. Like, once I really understood that, also my body really was like giving me signals, but it first whispers, then it screams, and I did not listen to the whisper. And I was so like, why is life punishing me? And I didn't see it was not punishing me. It was like, hello, what are you doing? Like, really, just can you please chill out and listen? And I was so gone, like, so yeah, and that helped so much, just knowing, hey, no, there's a lesson to be learned here. And also what you say, you have to be able to carry it, and that is so true. And I'm saying that from have I've walked the line, I know. It is true. Like, otherwise it's gonna kill you. You cannot lift 200 kgs up without a training up front. So, and once I really understood that, I was like, oh, okay. Okay, now it's suddenly different. Now I look at these challenges in a complete different way, and it's more like a
Yeah,
welcome. Okay, let's see how much I've
yeah.
learned the last time. Like, yeah,
Exactly. And the universe will never send you something that you can't handle. Like you literally, there will be nothing that you send your way that you can't handle. And I think sometimes we can look back in hindsight. And I actually remember hearing this and it always stuck with me. I think I heard it on a podcast or something where there was a study done with people that had had very, very traumatic events in their lives. And they asked the trauma, these people that have experienced these big, big T traumas, would you take back the trauma? And they said, yes, absolutely. Of course, I would take that back. It was the biggest pain in my life. And they said, okay, but if we took it back, you wouldn't learn anything that you learned from it and you wouldn't become the person that you came from it. Would you still take it back? And majority said, no, I wouldn't take it back. Like,
mm,
okay, if that's the case, then I won't take it back. And I think there's something in that of, you know, we learn through pain. Like we learn through hardship. We don't learn through like that's just
no,
us as humans. And sadly, but at the same time, when we can then see it as, yeah, it's never to suffer, never to think, it's just seeing that this is um, you know, a way that we're being invited to deeper healing or to go back within to ourselves. It's always just it's one quick reframe away, one quick perspective away, one quick aha, okay. I
yeah,
often, me and my friend were actually joking about this, about those moments when you're like, oh,
yes,
that's why. That's why my mum did that. Oh, and like those moments where you're just like,
yes,
and you just see this totally different perspective of everything that,
yeah,
something you moved through or something that you noticed in yourself or another person. Um, so yeah, it's all just perspective.
yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Was there ever a time where you wanted to quit um, human design and yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
What happened
Yeah.
there?
And I'm so grateful for a friend that was just like, before you burn it all down, give yourself a week. And I'm so glad she did because I was so ready
Yeah.
to burn it all down. It was actually when I came back to Australia. So
Mm,
I came back to Australia and all my shadow, all my judgment, all my stuff came up about, is this weird? Is this going to be accepted? And I
mm,
honestly persuaded myself that it was. I was just like, this human design thing is kind of weird. And my friend was like, she lived with me in Mexico where I was so passionate about it.
Yes.
I also have an open identity center, which means I take in my environment. She was like, 2 weeks ago, you were bouncing off the walls in excitement. She was just like, just give it a moment. And I wouldn't have actually burnt it down. I don't think I would have. But I think it's whenever you're doing something from that triggered response and this
Mm.
burn it all down energy, it's just important to breathe through that and like move through that. It needs to come from like a intuitive knowing of like, okay, um, but otherwise, I feel like, there's always going to be evolutions within your business or within your life. So I've never been afraid of that and just allowing of like, okay, for example, okay, doing one-on-one readings no longer felt exactly how I could best use my energy and just honoring that and then being like, okay, rather than burning it all down, it's just like, okay, well, I'll have a break from that and focus on different other aspects in my business. So I feel like with this, you're always like, you should always be adapting and changing. And if it does call the time where it's like, okay, the desire is no longer needed or no longer there, it's because, again, the need has shifted and changed.
Yeah.
So how do I respond to that, or what's true for me? So I've always been open to that and always flowed with that. But at the same time, yeah, that was a very specific moment. I really remember it of just being like, maybe I'll just change the Instagram name and do this totally different thing. I was thinking about doing an app or something, and it was got nothing to do with human design. But yeah, you just move through that at that point.
Yeah. But then now you are like having retreats in the most beautiful places. Isn't that insane? Like coming from, hey, is it gonna work? Is that weird? To having readings to then say, you know what, no, I actually want to evolve and just use my time a bit smarter. And now you with your podcast as well, you're reaching so many more people. That's
Yeah,
so amazing. That's
yeah,
so amazing. And
yeah.
especially with the retreat. So I said to Hillary earlier, like, I am actually like, wow, I have a lot of respect for that, just on a business side and also organizational side, because hosting retreats and then also, yeah, just creating this beautiful space without losing it. You know, there's so much prepping in advance, and there's so much just, yeah, organizing, and your head must be so full. And yet still you take an hour to chat with me, which is so amazing.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, it's nothing is ever as hard as it looks. It's like you just do it. I think that's the big thing that I have always has been a benefit for me is I'm almost a little bit naive going into things. And so the first time I ran a retreat, I had no idea what I was signing myself up. And I just really had to trust. I was like, look, I don't want to talk or think about this anymore. I need to just do it. And, whenever you do something new or first, it's always going to be like a little bit, like sharing. And when I did my first retreat, it definitely didn't sell as fast as it does now. And it didn't fully sell out. I remember, I think I had like 10 or 12 people come, but the space could have fit more. But I was like, okay, this is my first retreat. And I think when you just release any expectations of what the exact outcome has to be, and and then you come to a place of like, okay, well, I'm doing this because I'm feeling called towards it. And also because I don't want to have a fear around it. I hate the feeling that something is stopping me because of a fear. So if I like sat and was like, oh, well, I don't want to do a podcast because there's a fear of what people think or will anyone even listen, that annoyed me that I had that. Because I sat on like 2 years with the podcast. And it was like, this is annoying to me now that I am afraid of that thing. So I did it more like even a little bit selfishly to just get through the fear. And so yeah, with the things like you make it work. Like there will never be anything bad. And like what is the worst case scenario? Um, and I'm so glad I did all those things because now, the retreats is a big part of my business, but also even with the most of it is my certification with teaching human design, and most of them are Australians in there, or they're from all over. I actually have some from where you are, but I think, imagine if I had never like just gave human design a go.
Yeah.
And this is something that has created so much. And also then the ripple on effect with all the other people. And I'm so passionate about sharing things in an empowered, non dogmatic, intuitive way. And so you just have to trust that if the desire is there, you'll either make it happen or it'll turn out exactly how it's meant to. So I could have really been down on myself that first time I did a retreat of like, oh, only, I think, I
Yeah.
can't remember, I think it was like 12 or 13. I'm like, oh, it didn't sell out. And I was like, no, I've got these amazing people here that are
Yeah.
ready. Worst case scenario, what would have been, I remember I really weighed it up of like, yeah, you do have to invest money with a retreat. I was like, worst case scenario, I lose a couple of $1,000s, whatever. Like, who cares? Um, I'll make
Yeah.
that back. It's not the end of the world. And you won't. That's the thing. You won't actually lose anything. But just to like give yourself, if what is the worst case? If it happens, I'll be fine. Just never let the worst case stop you because, firstly, as I said, it's not going to happen. But second, you're not going to fall and perish and be a massive failure and everything will, you'll be homeless and all these things that our mind can tell us. So I think I've created a big trust muscle with that because, there's been way more investments just in the retreat, but it's always returned tenfold. So you kind of have to be willing to take the first step in order to receive. Um, there's only so far you could go where you're not willing to risk anything. Um, it's
Yeah,
just
that's true.
how much you show up for it is how much you'll receive back. And also as well, how much other people are impacted from it.
Mm. Yeah, but still, I think even the 12 or 13 people is already amazing. But that's probably what
Ah,
everyone else sees, and you are like, oh, but it wasn't sold out. And I
exactly.
was
We
like,
all have
oh my
our
God,
thing.
so many people
I
already.
could have had 16, of course. Like, of course it's the thing I remember. I need to practice what I also preach. Of course it's the one, oh, it's the one retreat I didn't sell out. But, it's like, but it was also, I remember it was a scary thing at that point.
Hmm.
Um, and there'll be other scary things that I'm nowhere at the end. Like I'm nowhere where I want to be. I've got plenty to go. I'm not a finished product at all. So there's things now when if it comes up, I'm like, oh, okay, is this what I'm going to do? This feels like new territory, and now it actually gets me it gets me excited. Like that nervousness is excitement rather than being like, oh, this is a bad sign because I'm afraid, or oh, this is a bad sign because this feels risky or anxiousness. And it's just, you create this trust muscle of, hey, well, that's how I felt a year ago when I did that thing. And that has, you know, it's always returns.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm very glad you did not stop doing human design and that you just keep. Oh, you have a new one out. That is an online course. Isn't that right? Like your purpose? I can't remember, but that's a new one, a fairly new
Yeah,
course.
path to purpose. Yeah. So it's a
Yes.
course to help you uncover and to connect with your intuitive direction and your purpose. So that's been really amazing because I just wanted to create a resource that was super accessible and affordable and you could just kind of go right in because it was what everyone was asking me around their human design. And like all the answers are there in your chart and also just in your own reflection. So yeah, I created a course around it so that you can just have it all there really easy. Um,
Yeah. I
yeah,
love
so I
that.
love it. Yeah.
Where can people find it?
Yeah, just on my website. So hillarymcveigh.com.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm going to link all of your links in the description so people
Yeah.
have easy access because really it's just so amazing. And you give, oh, that is like a compliment I want to give you that coming. It's really coming from my heart. I love that you give out like so much free and valuable advice. Like that is insane. So often I see people giving out free advice, but it's really like, oh come on, you're half-assing it. Then don't give out advice at all. But if you really want to like say, hey, I have this platform, I do want you to get help. This is the first step. And you do it so beautifully with all your heart. And I've learned so much just from listening to your podcast. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And it's a free source. It's crazy. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for that.
Oh, thank you for receiving. I think it's so important. It's like I don't want ever this to be just gate kept, and I feel like I wish I could have like maybe I need to do a YouTube like a visual component with the podcast because I always feel like how can I give more? But that's always just been the biggest thing for me within my business or just sharing. It's like just give value. When you give value, There's
Yeah.
nothing else. There's, and don't be afraid to do that. I think some people are like, I don't want to give it all away. No, like you got plenty. So
Yes.
yeah, and for people that are interested in their human design, I do give a free chart that really breaks it down for you on the website. A lot more than you'll find in other places. So look there. Because that was the other thing. It's like I know a lot of people are like, oh, but then they won't book in readings or they won't come in spaces. No, like
No.
this shouldn't be hard to receive information.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love it. I really do love it. I'm so like grateful that you do it the way you're doing it.
Oh,
Really
thank you.
awesome. Yeah. So people are receiving it. Yeah, no, I definitely I see that. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
Hillary, I thank you so much for your time.
Thank
And
you.
like I just want to pack myself. Like I want to ship myself over to Bali and just go on this retreat with you.
Yeah.
And so I really hope, yeah, I don't hope it is going to be a great experience and
Yeah,
in
very
such a beautiful
excited.
location as well. I've seen pictures
Mhm.
on Instagram and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's beautiful.
I know. I
Amazing.
always love the women that do like feel drawn. It's so interesting whenever I see that, like as the women start coming in, it's very interesting to see like the thrill line and the. I feel like this one that's coming up is going to be really big because the women are just very, yeah, they're ready to go. So it's
Nice.
like music to my ears.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, I'm wishing you the best time, safe flight, and just, yeah, enjoy. Everyone, I want to come
In
too.
the future, come to an
Awesome.
Australian one.
Oh,
Come
yes,
visit
I
Australia.
will. I
Yeah.
will for sure. Like it is like every cell in my body for like 4 years, I feel the pull towards it. And
Mm-hmm.
because of COVID, I told you earlier, I couldn't really go. And this is what it's so like frustrating for me right now. It's like, oh, I know I'm supposed to be there right now in that area and I can feel it. But it's just right now, it's not really happening. Like logistically, I can't really leave here. So it's like, so yeah, I have to figure it out. I have to figure it
Yeah.
out and I will go to Australia and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to
Yeah.
have you.
Oh my God, yes. I also like, do you sometimes give like face to face or like reading still?
Yeah, I
Oh,
do.
okay.
I do. I love
I
that.
love
Yeah.
that.
I always will.
I
It
love
was
that.
just less doing them like,
Yeah.
4 or 5 a day. So I just started shifting. But yeah, I still do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
I love
Okay, cool. I'm very glad to hear you. Awesome. Hillary, thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you.
awesome. Like really, what a beautiful soul you are. And yeah, I really hope at some point our paths will actually cross like in real life as well. It would be
Oh,
amazing.
yes. No, you're just seeing in me what's within you. So I'm just reflecting back to you. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
And yeah, I just wish you all the best and success in the world. I really do.
You too. It's amazing what you're doing. And
Thank
I
you.
love feeling your energy and just love, yeah, keep going, just, you're doing it. That's the
Yeah.
thing. I think sometimes when we're on this path, this is what I had to always remind myself of, like, oh, wait, I'm already doing it. Like, I remember I used to have these, visions, or like my future self or my higher self would come visit me in like really deep meditations or breathwork and journal, all the time. She would
Mhm.
come in. And a lot of the time she was just like, just keep going. Stop stressing. You're doing it.
Yeah.
It'll just progressively grow. It will compound. Because sometimes I think we have this, and I'm only mentioning this because you mentioned it earlier when we were off record or off recording. It's like, yeah, really like release the expectation that anything is meant to happen overnight, or like
Mm.
that it just, if it's not happening right now, then it's not going to ever happen.
Yeah.
Like, people aren't often an overnight success.
Mm.
There's been a lot
Yeah.
of, you know, things happening in the background, a lot of self work in the background, a lot of visualizing, a lot of meditation, a lot of hard work.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so keep doing what you're doing. And I love to see what you share and what you do.
Thank you so much.
Mm.
Ah, Hillary, it was such a pleasure. Mwah. Thank you so
Ah,
much.
thank you.
Beautiful. I will, yeah, maybe see you at somewhere, some other time. I would love that.
Sounds
Until
good.
then,
Yeah.
ciao. Thank you.
Ciao.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode and found exactly what you needed from it. If you would like to support my mission, don't forget to follow the podcast and leave a 5-star review. I appreciate your guys' support massively. For more, head over to my website at greenplanetcosmetics.com, where you will find free content, my online workshops, and of course, my signature expert class. If you are feeling called to dive deeper, I also offer one-on-one sessions and intensive packages. Just reach out to me directly. And last but not least, if you have any further questions, business or lifestyle related, or if you would like to hear more about my story, don't hesitate to ask. I would love to hear from you and weave your questions into my future episodes. Now, thanks so much for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.